Hey, I'm Matt. This is the 10-minute Bible Hour, and I just took my family to go see the live-action version of The Lion King that Jon Favreau directed. And if you've been around this channel for any period of time, you know that sometimes a story, a movie, will really get through the armor for me. And when that happens, I like to come home, turn on the camera, and while it's still fresh, just talk about why and what stood out to me. So I want to do that here. And I know that not everybody's going to be interested in the same stuff, so I'm going to do a little table of contents to allow you to skip around to what you're interested in. So we'll start spoilers at the minute 16 mark. We'll talk about music first. Then we'll talk about the look of it at 2:07, the casting at 2:51. That should be enough time. We'll talk about the plot at 3:34, my feelings at 4:01, and then the thing that probably most of you are here, the themes, let's call it the 5:03 mark, and then we'll wrap the whole thing up, or at least get going in that direction at 8:41. There, we have a plan. So here's the deal. Before we get into the spoiler part, you should probably go see this movie. Whether you liked or didn't like the last one, I think you're going to dig this one. Now we're into the spoiler part, and the first thing that stood out to me was the music. How many shows do you go and see anymore that just have iconic songs that you just heard it once, but you're going to be hearing that for the rest of your life because it was incredible? Maybe Frozen, but in the last 20 years, it just hasn't happened much. Well, The Lion King is maybe the most you're going to remember that song, movie soundtrack ever, and it went even beyond the songs with the lyrics. The score that Hans Zimmer put behind it absolutely paces out the story, and all those beats match up so nicely, and they preserved all of it, which was very important to me. So the story felt familiar. It worked. There's a new song by Beyonce. She performs it wonderfully. The lyrics are kind of all over the place, but there's one thing that stood out there. We'll come back to that when we get to themes. The look of this show is as good as it gets. I mean, where do you go from here? I thought Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book a couple years ago was going to be as good as it could get, but even there, I could see some of the limitations. Here, that most common CGI problem of weight, that it's hard to show something pressing against something else in a believable way. That's overcome, I think, in part through technical prowess, but I think it's also partially overcome because mostly we're looking at cats, and they seem kind of weightless anyway. Whatever the case, you're not sitting there thinking 10 minutes in, oh, I'm watching CGI animals. It feels like you're watching a nature show, and it doesn't feel weird to have them singing or doing choreography or whatever it is they're doing. The casting also doesn't take you out of it. I wanted to see, whether James Earl Jones was going to be in it. That's the first thing I ran and looked up when I heard this thing was going to happen. And fortunately, he's back as Mufasa. Second thing I looked up, probably the same for you, is are we going to get more Jeremy Irons as Scar? And we don't. The actor who portrays Scar, oh no, I'm forgetting his name. Ejiofor, that's his last name. He nails it. You're fully in on him, and there's no problem with that as we move along into the high points of the story. And even his version of Be Prepared, which is more of a chant, is more thematically appropriate for building tension in the moment. It's also shorter, which really helps, because even though I thought the 1994, whatever it was, Lion King, it was about as good as it could be and one of my favorite movies ever, I felt like there were a couple of pacing issues, and that Be Prepared song, the tension's ratcheting up. Now I have to listen to this again. It's way shorter. We hustled through it better. We also get a couple of extra plot beats about how Nala gets away to go and find Simba, which I think fleshes out the story in general. The biggest thing that stood out to me from just a general moviegoer perspective, though, is that when I saw this movie as a kid, I was in Simba's position. I could relate to getting lectured by my dad, who's a good dad and who taught me a bunch of stuff that I needed to be taught. And I could relate to Simba having that epiphany moment of, wow, we might not always be together, Dad. And then I think I needed this remake in a way, because I don't know that my brain ever would have updated to the position that I saw the movie from this time, which was the dad. It just stunned me to realize I relate to Mufasa now. I got my kids here, and I got my little buddy right here, and grieving the idea of me not being with them forever was a new emotion for me in all of this. And obviously, the Stampede scene was still withering for me emotionally, too. So you got all the plot points, and you've got all the technology and the filmmaking prowess that you would expect to go into a project of this kind of budget and this kind of publicity level. But what stood out to me the most in a lingering way as I drove home were these themes. And I remember, the first time around kind of thinking, oh, this is like, it's like Hamlet, right? You got the kid, and you got the uncle, and you got the murder and the intrigue and all of that. And after watching it this time, I feel like, no, The Lion King is half Hamlet, but it's also half Moses. It's the story of this character who makes a mistake, and a mistake that costs someone their life. And you can say Scar was wrong about that, but the reality is Simba was proud. And it was kind of his fault that Mufasa died, because Simba's pride put his dad in difficult positions. And if Simba didn't have that character flaw, his dad wouldn't have been in that spot. Now, obviously, Scar's the bad guy and bears moral responsibility for what happened. But like Moses, Simba makes a mistake, a life is taken, and he goes off into the wilderness to recover, figure out who he is, and then he returns later to sort out something that needed a reckoning. And so you got half Hamlet, you got half Moses, but there are also all these moments in the story, including the line, "The Great I Am," that appears a couple times in Beyonce's new song, that point to God and the Bible and Jesus. But Simba can't be Jesus because Simba has flaws that he has to overcome. But Simba's supposed to be king, and so I thought about that some more, and it occurred to me that in the first gospel, the book of Matthew, you have a situation where Matthew is presenting Jesus as the new Moses, and so they're the new and better and complete Moses. And so there are all of these repeated themes there, and I feel like maybe all three kind of lump together to make a very interesting narrative where Jesus kind of fits into the theme of the plot, but where Moses and Hamlet more fit into the theme of Simba's character. I guess what I love about a well-written show is that the characters are flawed, where their flaws are more complex than just someone was mean to them and they're the victim of something. That's the kind of stories we've been writing lately, and those are lazy. The stories that I care about are the ones where somebody screws something up. Somebody has legitimate character problems, like me, problems I can relate to, and that I get to watch them over the course of 2 hours figure out how to overcome that. And it forces me to think about whether I'm doing anything to overcome the messes in my life. And so I love that these characters aren't flat, they're growing, they're evolving. I love that there's vulnerability. I also like that we deal with the theme of kings. You got the idea of a good king lined up against the idea of a bad king, but further it's contrasted against the idea of no king and living the anarchy hedonist lifestyle. And clearly what the show comes down promoting is that the benevolent king is the best thing, which again is a biblical theme, that the king and kingdom are made right under the guidance of the one true king who is God, and that any lesser king is going to make a mess of things. And I think history has borne that out well. There's also the theme of accusation and guilt, with Scar playing the role of Satan and us being reminded of how much guilt can make us do crazy things. So wrapping all of this up, thematically, this pushed me, this challenged me, this made me feel like I needed to think of my life in terms of epochs and think about whether I might lose sight of things the way Simba lost sight of things, to think about my relationships and where they're at and who your real friends are, and all of these things that I suppose sometimes just go unchecked for a while. And I appreciate a movie that entertains me, that challenges me to take stock of the big picture stuff in my life, that it offers some gentle themes that aren't super heavy-handed and overwhelming, but some gentle themes that make me think about the larger world outside of myself and where I might fit into it. And if it's done with artistry and beauty, I'll take it all the more. And I particularly love a movie that doesn't feel like a 2-hour sermon about somebody's political preference or whatever stuff they might be into, but rather deals with those more inclusive, holistic themes about life. And I feel like if you do that as a Christian, you can't help but deal with spiritual themes. And so I like that this movie was not a sermon, but that I've got some things to wrestle with coming away from it. So, in summary, I really recommend going and checking this thing out. The critical reviews seem to be like 50-50. I have to think that's being hurt by nostalgia, but the audience seems to love it. It looks like those reviews are through the roof. I'm very interested to hear what you think about it, and particularly to hear what your experience was like watching the animated version back in the day, what it made you think about, and what it makes you think about now seeing this updated one. Looking forward to comparing notes on that. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's do this again soon.